Yeah, you like the new intro? I'm gonna be taking a look at The Shining today. I'll be looking at some elements of film, camera tracking, lighting, along with a few scenes from the movie to explain what's happening, whether it be popular opinion, my theory, or stated from an interview with Kubrick himself. We'll look at scenes, meanings, and some cool features I noticed, along with 10 interesting facts about The Shining. But before we get started, I want to make 3 things very clear. 1, this is not looking at the book at all. I tend to stick to movies in my analyses, and I look at only movie aspects. However, in researching the movie, if a scene makes better sense in print form, i.e., it makes no sense in the movie and I have to Google it and it turns out it was from the book and adopted poorly, then I will address it as such. Otherwise, it's as deep as the movie. Number 2. There was a lot of stuff with this movie, and since I don't have the time to look at everything with it, some things may have been left out. I hope that isn't too much of an inconvenience for you. Number 3, if I mess something up, please let me know. Like I said, there was a lot in this movie and there's a good chance I may have messed something up. I'm still waiting on the DNA results, but I'm pretty sure I'm only human. Now, looking at The Shining, we have to understand what it's all about. Literally, its description on Netflix, where I watched it, says it's about Jack Torrance descends into madness, terrorizing his wife and young son, after living at a deserted and eerie hotel during its off-season. That's it. That's the whole movie summary. The hook to get you to watch it from a literal standpoint, I'd say that's pretty accurate. From a technical standpoint, we have to look at the hotel as if it were another member of this cast, because it's the meat of the movie, in that I mean. It really is where the plot takes hold and where this sane man Jack becomes out of his mind crazy with these hallucinations. But were they all hallucinations, or were they visions of a past life? Was the butler, Gardy, really just a fake butler who was really the former caretaker? Or was the former caretaker before Jack a butler in a past life and the hotel makes Jack remember, as Gardy informed him?
I'm sorry to differ with you, sir. But you are the caretaker. You've always been the caretaker.
See, it's this bathroom scene, inside the ballroom scene, that hints to a past life situation, and this isn't the last time we'll see this theme, but we'll come back to it.
What about Tony? You know, I broke.
Right now I want to address Tony.
Who's Tony?
Tony's a little boy that loves my mouth.
This persona of Danny's that seems to give him insight on the world around him, yet keeps it from him. This gift adopting its own personality, most likely because Danny doesn't understand how he knows all of this stuff, and his mind created a friend who tells him,
Tony, do you think Dad'll get the job?
He already did. He's gonna phone Wendy up in a few minutes to tell her.
but a personality that keeps information away from Danny. It's a strange adaptation for the gift of insight, not too far from seeing into the future like we've seen with other movies and TV shows. The movie brings out the reason Danny knows these things, and this is where we learn another meaning of The Shining.
I can remember when I was a little boy. My grandmother and I could hold conversations entirely without ever opening our mouths. She called it shining.
In which we learn that people who both shine can connect to each other and they see things like the pages of a book. This is something we normally don't see. At least I can't think of anything that comes to mind this specifically. The closest I can think of are individuals like Raven from the Teen Titans. Shout out to that show. Who can meditate and see the world around her through a portal through her mind, or something like that. But she can only see it when meditating. Danny can always know it, but only if Tony, the shine personified, allows him to know. That, and I found the voice he used quite annoying. I've talked a lot about aspects of this movie, but I haven't been addressing the movie itself, and right now we are going to take a look at the bathroom scene in 237. For the sake of my videos being struck with violations, this is going to be pretty censored. This is seemingly unconnected to the rest of the story, and it doesn't make sense. While this is a representation of seduction, the question is of what, by what, for what reason, and more importantly, why is it an old lady? For this, I will give you the film interpretation and a book reference, since this kind of needs an anchor to solidify it to the plot's main theme, which again, I will come back to. To some people, this is just a scene where they get to oogle at a naked woman, but in hindsight, this is where the evil of the hotel seduces Jack and takes hold. The beauty of 237, the woman, gets Jack to cheat, metaphorically and quite literally, on his wife. Once he does, she reveals herself as this old, rotting woman. This may be one of the most important scenes in the movie, as this is truly where Jack's mind begins to erode, and where the evil of his hallucinations begin to take hold. I didn't mean to rhyme there. That is what the film is saying, and it isn't too far off what the book seems to have said. The woman's name is Mrs. Macy, and she was a woman who had an affair with a younger man, who then took her car and left. She was so distraught she killed herself with pills and drowned in the bathtub. Now, since again, I wasn't taking a look at the book, some accounts are saying she was a younger woman and would seduce bellboys in the book. Some say she was older when she died but had been doing it for years. Also, in the book the room was 217, not 237. That's because the hotel that they were filming in did not have a room 237 and didn't want to freak guests out. Small differences, but the evil seduction theme of that scene still remains, and is what qualifies the scene to be as iconic and necessary to the plot as it is. There are other theories, but I'll keep it to those for this video. Let's do something I've never done before, and look at elements of a film in regards to transitions and camera angles. First off, in the beginning, we see these fade transitions used quite often, flipping between Jack in the office and Wendy and Danny at home in the beginning, and used during slower parts of the movie. This is subtle, but it's what allows the audience to determine that these events are happening simultaneously while being connected in some shape or form. If they aren't connected, then they use an immediate snap transition. You see more fade transitions in the beginning than in the end as the story picks up in pace. This causes the pace of the movie to feel faster for the audience. One trick of the movie is that it has these tracking sequences. People that mostly recognize this camera technique is when Danny is riding his tricycle through the halls, but it happens within the first 20 minutes of the movie and is used as a way to sort of pull the audience along, giving this impression that the scene is about to lead somewhere important, while the journey is just that, a journey. Usually, they say the setup is one of the building blocks to a scene, but Kubrick uses this camera to draw attention from the journey and basically guides the audience by hand to what he wants you to pay attention to. Jack's violent history in the beginning, and the twins with room 237 later in the film, and the journey through the maze in the ending, really pulling the audience through the film as if they were in the hotel as well. Speaking of the ending, what was up with it? Well, connecting back to the theme I've been putting off until now, we have this notion that Jack has been there before. Kubrick said in an interview that the reason behind the photo was to show that Jack was originally a part of the hotel. In fact, he was always the caretaker, remember? And along with this moment,
I fell in love with it right away. When I came up here for my interview, it was as though I'd been here before. I mean, we all have moments of deja vu, but this was ridiculous. It was almost as though I knew what was going to be around every corner.
It's hinted greatly at almost this past life mentality. Kubrick's claim was that the photo was to show that Jack had been called back to the hotel, like Grady, the butler, and died in the hotel again. This is why I designated the hotel as a character in the story, because it almost has a personality, and is the reason behind some of the events, possibly. So, the photo, which is a real photo from 1921 with Jack Nicholson's face airbrushed over top, shows how the hotel keeps calling people back, which begs a question from earlier as well to be addressed. Were they hallucinations of a man descending into madness? Or were they visions of the past, like how The Shine was explained as reading pages in a book that Jack was experiencing? Was it in his mind, or was it spawned by the hotel? Is the hotel even a paranormal site, or was this all cabin fever for him? These are questions I don't have answers to, but I know the boy did see things too, but Wendy didn't until the end, which opens new routes for the story to be told in regards to real or fake. So throughout this movie there were these anomalies that gave away when something paranormal or strange or abnormal was about to happen, but the main thing that stood out to me were these high-pitched screech in the movie.
Got 60 boxes of dried milk.
Seemed to appear before the shine would show itself, or something would go wrong, like with the hallucinations. I feel like this high-pitched sound was put in the movie to keep the audience tense, because this sound is so unpleasant, it would kill any attempt to feel comfortable throughout the movie, especially in a movie theater where the sound would be so much louder. And now, let's get on to some interesting facts about The Shining that you may have known a few, but I hope some of these are a shock to you. Number 1. Jack Nicholson was a volunteer firefighter, so since he was basically ripping the prop doors that they had to pieces like tissue paper, they had to use a real door instead for the axe scene, and it took 60 doors. Number 2. The snow in the final scenes is salt with some styrofoam, and it took over 900 tons of salt to film it. Number 3. The baseball bat scene took 127 times to shoot. Number 4. Shelley Duvall and Stanley Kubrick did not get along. Kubrick would tend to be so demanding and hostile that she actually had to go to therapy for emotional distress after the filming of the movie, even reportedly losing her hair. Number 5. The film took 5 years to make, with a year of filming. Talk about dedication. Number 6. The scene in which blood is pouring out of the elevator door took 3 days to film. Oh, and on top of a year to plan in advance. And number 7. Danny, or Danny Lloyd, didn't know he was in a horror film. Kubrick believed that since he was so young, it would mess with his head. In fact, the scene in which there was the hallway with the Grady twins was shot with 2 separate shots spliced together. One was the twins alone, and one with Danny alone. So, Kubrick wasn't entirely an asshole.
Here's Johnny!
Was improvised, and Stanley Kubrick almost cut it from the movie because he didn't get the reference. Number 9. To get Jack Nicholson in the right agitated mood for the film, Kubrick would only provide cheese sandwiches for 2 weeks beforehand, which Jack notoriously hated.
Ever thought about my responsibilities?
Oh, Dick, what are you talking about?
Have you ever had a single moment's thought about my responsibilities? Have you ever thought for a single solitary moment about my responsibilities to my employers? Has it ever occurred to you that I have agreed to look after the Overlook Hotel until May the 1st? Does it matter to you at all?
Number 10. Stephen King didn't like the movie. He felt that Jack Nicholson was mad from the beginning, from his previous work in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, or rather he appeared mad, and the grin from the beginning made him look like a madman. However, Jack Torrance was supposed to be someone who descends into madness. Shelley Duvall, Wendy, appeared too weak and fragile from the beginning as well, and she was supposed to be a strong woman who was weakened by the constant berating of her husband coupled with cabin fever. Stephen King once described the movie like a luxury sports car without an engine, presumably because on the surface it looks good, but there wasn't anything to take it anywhere. Thank you all for watching. This was a rather larger video, and I'd appreciate it if you'd share it for the sake of loving movies. This was probably one of my favorite movies to look at because there was so much to observe and research. Anyway, I don't know what the next movie will be, but I hope to see you all there. Leave a like, comment, share the video, and subscribe, and I will see you all next time. Peace.